All right, what's going on, boys and girls? So this particular video, as you can tell by the title above, a lot of people ask what I would recommend for Linux distros, and generically, I don't do recommendations for new users simply based on the fact that each user is different. They're gonna have different use cases, different needs, different wants, etc. from their OS. Some are gonna want bleeding edge software, some are gonna want stability, or some aren't going to care as far as how often it's updated, etc. It all depends on the user. Some people want a nice pointy, clicky app store type interface. So it all depends on the user. So for me, this particular video kind of runs the range of stuff I would personally recommend if I'm going to go that route. And it kind of goes in order of quote unquote difficulty based on depending on the user. So first, to me, the one distro that, in spite of where it's from and all the other garbage that people complain and bitch and moan and complain about it, that does end user stuff right, is probably gonna be Deepin. Now, the reason I choose Deepin is because the App Store, from a design point of view, is bar none the best. I will fight anybody on that point. If these guys that are coming to Linux are newer users, they're from the cell phone mentality. So guess what? They're going to be used to an app store and the way an app store is designed and functions and works. So that means they're going to be used to like an iOS app store or the Android, sorry, not Android Marketplace, Google Play stuff. That's what they're going to be used to. So something that focuses on like functionality and design and not having to like bunch of wasted space and white space all over the place, like Discover and GNOME software and all the other stuff. Deepin has the best store, hands down, as far as that, and it's gotten better with every iteration that they've put out. Design. Now we can talk design. There is no other distro that goes for cohesive design across the board for its default applications from the desktop and the integrated applications, etc., than Elementary. Generically, what Elementary says they are more for Windows users than Mac users, I'm going to actually say that Mac users will have an easier time understanding Elementary based on the fact that Mac OS is designed around a design principle or a design theory, etc., which is kind of what Elementary does. Like I'm not saying they're design specific, but the way they think about how a desktop should be, how an application should be, it's based around a cohesive theme of does it fit? And that is something that not a lot of Linux distros do. So to me, that's really, really cool. I like what they're doing. And they do a lot of really good stuff. Was it Graphite and Akira are two like GUI design tools, I guess is the best way to describe them, for making cohesive UX and UI within Elementary. And that is amazing. So next up, if I'm going to give a general, just kind of like, hey, here's a distro, and I will state I am not a fan of GNOME, but that just because I'm not a fan of it does not mean I do not recognize that what this particular OS does, which is Pop OS, is this to me is the best general system to give a user. They have enough design that it will please most people. It looks nice. They have the ability for the AMD, Intel / NVIDIA ISOs separated. They have Lutris. They have Steam. They have a lot of stuff that makes it easier for the new user. And I'm not gonna lie, the installer is actually really, really nice. Next up is more advanced, but not really to me. And this one is because it gives you two flavors, and this one is Netrunner. Netrunner has KDE with all the questionable defaults, shall we say. I could recommend Kubuntu, which is another one to recommend because they do a dark combination dark light theme, which is actually really, really good. But to me, the tuning that Netrunner does is just a little bit more to me. You can have a Manjaro base or you can have a Debian base. And to piss off some of the Debian fans, Debian. But the point of the point is that if you want stability, as far as like a Deb base that is not going to be updated for like 2 years minimum, you have that, or you can get a much, much newer stack of Plasma and all the other goodness that Netrunner does on top of Manjaro without going Manjaro. It's a different take on Manjaro's version of KDE. I want to give kind of like an honorable mention, and that is to Solus. I like the Solus project. I like a lot of what they are trying to do. I hope they continue to do what they do. To me, the way Budgie is designed is how GNOME should be by default. There's enough to tweak, but there's also enough that the default makes fucking sense. The one thing that I give honorable mention, because the package selection is still going to be limited. So you might love it or you might hate it. This is not the AUR. This is not also the, Debian and like the 50,000 packages or whatever you can get from that. Or if you go to testing or unstable, etc. So Solus is good. It had some upheaval. It seems to have settled down. They seem to have found their flow, but it's a good honorable mention to me. And next up, if you like getting your hands a little more dirty, you want to get into what's all the fun about Linux? But we don't want all the headaches of like Linux from scratch or even the generic Arch install. You don't have to want to read and all the other stuff, but you just kind of want to feel like you are trying something totally different than like a Windows or etc. I'm not going to recommend any GUI. I'm going to recommend Manjaro Architect. Because this is, to me, you can argue Arco Linux and a bunch of other ones, but to me, this is the best net installer that there is because it gives you so many choices for things. Now, if you want to feel like you're actually customizing your system to the way you want it, there you go. Again, this is personal take and choice. So anybody who wants to bitch and complain that, why did you choose these? These are ones that I'm viewing from the new user perspective. People who haven't touched Linux, but their skill level is going to be different from where they're coming from and what use case they might have. So people who want more control and customization, I'm probably going to recommend Manjaro Architect as opposed to something like Deepin or Pop or Elementary where it's more rigid. It's not that hard. So those are my recommendations for new users based on simply the fact of the range of potential new users and like I don't want to say skill level, but what they may be looking for. So what are some of your recommendations? Right, wrong, doesn't really matter. This is a discussion. Discuss. You guys know what to do. Patreon, Indigala, all the stuff is down below. I'll catch you guys on the flip side. Peace.